And welcome back to GB News Live. Let's take you back to France, to Paris, where there are violent scenes now on the streets of the French capital. Now, as you can see, we've got French riot police with their shields and also their face masks, because you can see coming in now those tear gas canisters trying to disperse the crowds. And we understand this is the situation also in the western cities of Nantes and Rennes, certainly with police reacting to what they say were projectiles thrown at them by protesters. But we haven't seen that happening here in Paris. What we have seen are these canisters being fired by the police to try and disperse the various marchers. Of course, it is the traditional Labour Day, May the 1st. The marches have taken place for many, many years in France, in Paris and other cities across France. The unions saying they were hoping that 1 million people would march through the towns and cities of France today to protest, of course, at President Macron's attempts to raise the state pension age in France to 64, but also being seen as a protest against Macron himself and the way that he has tried to impose this change without going through the various legislative processes, but the process now really taking issue with the way that he has imposed himself, as they see. But you can see the very thick smoke now across the street, the boulevard there, people moving back. The police themselves have got these tear gas masks on and the visors and the helmets, so clearly they're being prepared for this. We did see earlier hundreds, if not thousands, of union and workers' groups with their flags and their protest placards, but indications here that the police have cleared this particular area by the use of those tear gas canisters. Let's just have a listen in. Well, you can hear the whistles and the boos there. A line of French police now starting to walk down this street to try and disperse the crowds. Their batons banging on their riot shields, trying to move forwards. Our cameraman there in Paris staying with these scenes, even though obviously the situation is changing moment by moment as that tear gas spreads across there. Let's bring in political commentator and journalist Guillaume Bigot, who can join us. Guillaume, clearly the French riot police were prepared for this, looking at the numbers and the equipment that they're carrying, and indeed the number of tear gas canisters that seem to be deployed in the last few minutes.
Yes, hello. It's, as a matter of fact, that the news is the use by the French police of the drones, those devices capable to film in real time and detect the movements of those groups that are called so-called black blocs, and the use of tear gas to prevent them to enter into the crowd is now pretty common. It depends what type of launchers they have, because some of the launchers and some of the grenades used are capable to create really serious damage, eventually to kill someone. It never happened after 2018, but during the Gilets jaunes, those types of grenades actually almost killed someone.
So these would be what, as far as the police are concerned, anarchist groups rather than the traditional union and workers groups and marches that take to the streets on this Labour Day, this May the 1st?
Absolutely, absolutely. You have actually two types of protests and movements. One is the social movements based on the trade unions. The two main trade unions in France, CFDT and CGT, are capable to control the crowd, and they're very used to that, and they're in retreat. They do not join those anarchists, the so-called black blocs. And you have the black blocs, which is another group. It has a long history, and those people wants to create chaos. Now, you have to understand, and the British public has to understand that some French politicians in the parliament, in the French parliament, named La France Insoumise, which is far left, run by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Those people are usually using the black blocs, using the writers, using the anarchists in order to push their ideas, and their appreciation of their action is quite ambiguous. They say, well, don't take them too much into account. They're not that violent, and so forth, and they encourage them to do it.
However, is there a shared common cause, and that is the growing frustration that some have with Macron and the way that he's tried to push through these pension reforms without the legislative process?
Yes, that's a main danger, actually, because those activists, those anarchists, are quite cut off from the population and from the, let's say, the ground movement of the French people. But the anger is widespread in France among the people and among the public. And you have now, I would say, 25% of the population that is backing the president. That is to say, 75% of the population is definitely against the president. And the president somehow is...
I'm just going to interrupt you. We're just seeing some extraordinary scenes where they're having to move some of the various flower stalls and vegetable stalls that, of course, have been put out on the streets on this May Day for people to share. I mean, this is clearly becoming a bit of a battleground, that what we can see. I don't know if you can see the same pictures as us, but clearly the police are now forming these groups to try and split up the protesters and gain some kind of control here.
What you have to understand is that those people are acting that way in order to produce what we're doing now, which is a comment on what they were doing, and they want to produce image. They want to produce a spectacular image for the news, and they are revolutionary on Instagram. I can call them that way. That is to say, they don't want to kill policemen, and they don't want to be killed. So they're not very serious, as Hegel, the philosopher, put it. If the blood is not shedding, then it's not historical, really. So it's not that historical. Okay. It's more of a spectacular thing. But it can be very dangerous because the situation is not completely under control from any side.
I'm just wondering, we've just seen to the left here, I'm just wondering if this is the restaurant, La Rotonde, that was so much of a favourite of Macron, whether this is, again, the focus of these protests.
No, I don't think La Rotonde, most of these protesters are attacking fast foods, they're attacking banks, they're attacking insurance, they're attacking all the symbols of globalization. La Rotonde was one of a kind because, of course, it's the restaurant, it's a famous restaurant in Paris, and you're right, the restaurant where Macron had dinner the first night of his victory in 2017. But now, usually they don't attack common restaurants or private restaurants. They attack mainly chains, and they attack everything that is a symbol of American globalization.
Very quickly, Guillaume, where does this leave the Labour Day march, the workers and the unions who march traditionally on this day?
Well, it's definitely bad news for them because their contest and their protest mainly focused on the reform of the years of retreat is now completely disturbed by this protest within the protest.
Okay, Guillaume, thank you very much indeed for updating us there. We'll continue to monitor this position here, of course, in Paris, as indeed, as we said, in Nantes and Rennes as well. Thank you for the moment.